Good morning and happy Tuesday. So how do you do it? How do you focus on your outcome? How do you reframe? How do you not be controlled by fear? How do you have a short memory, forget the things that you did wrong, focus on the things that you did right? How do you let go of the past and only live in the present, only look at the future, not focused on where you came from, but only focus on where you're going, not worry about the things that you did wrong? Well, I think some of the greatest examples of this, we've talked about Walt Disney, we've talked about, I guess I haven't done the Rocky Balboa story. I talked about The Rock yesterday. Sports figures, I think, are some of the greatest examples of this. So Jack Nicklaus is going into his final round of the U.S. Open. He has a one-stroke lead, and the U.S. Open is always played at an incredibly difficult golf course that they make 10 times harder so that it's U.S. Open standard. So typically, if you're even par or maybe one under par, you win the U.S. Open. It's they make the course incredibly difficult. So he was one under par with a one-stroke lead. Good morning, Dave. And he bogeys the first two holes. And in the U.S. Open, that is typically death. The way that you win a U.S. Open is you go through and you don't make mistakes. You don't have bogeys. So he now has blown his one-stroke lead. He's one stroke behind. And he's only in the first two holes. He goes on to play the next 16 holes, 3 under par, and wins the tournament by 2 strokes. Afterwards, he's being interviewed, and the guy said, he goes, "How'd you do it? You bogeyed the first 2 holes, and you still went on to play 2 under par, or 1 under par for the round, and end up even par for the tournament and win the tournament." And Jack Nicklaus looked at him and was actually confused by the question. And he said, "Well, every round of golf you have 1 or 2 bad holes. So after I played the first 2 holes, I thought to myself, well, great. I've now got the 2 bad holes out of the way, and so now I'm going to play great for the rest of this round." And you could tell that it wasn't a line. He was dead serious, and that was how he fell in his core. And he even, like I said, he even looked at the guy asking him the questions and just thought, what don't you get? The interviewer was stunned, as was everybody else who golfed at that point. And they, in a documentary that they did on him, the professional golfers of the time said that they were watching this interview in the bar. Back then, the golfers would all actually hang out in the bar after they played, and they all just stopped and looked at each other. And the paradigm shift that was caused that day was massive. He had completely shown them how to change your psychological approach to the game of golf and reframe that situation. Every other golfer, it would have ended their day and ended their round and ended their tournament. 2 bogeys, you're done. You're done in the U.S. Open in the final round with 2 bogeys. You're off. You're having a bad day. They would have all gotten in their head. If you watch interviews of Jack Nicklaus when he was at his prime, they would talk to him about the round, and they would ask him about shots. And if you watch, he could not physically remember his bad shots. They would say, what happened on your second shot on 5? And Jack would sit there and he would go, I don't remember my second shot on 5, but I remember the third shot. So he'd remember the recovery shot that would be something amazing, but he could not physically remember the bad shot. He somehow was able to just completely put that out of his head and move on to the next thing. I saw one announcer one time say that great athletes have short memories. They don't hang on to their failures. So I finished watching The Last Dance, which if you haven't seen it, I think is really just spectacular. I mean, it's so well done. Everybody's so honest. It's such an extraordinary story. It's such an extraordinary team. I mean, I thought it was just wonderful. I'm going to be happy to watch it again. And, somebody posted here when I was talking about Michael Jordan that I don't remember, it's 26 or 36 times Michael Jordan was given the ball to take the last shot and missed. But at the end of the game, who does he think should be taking the last shot? Of course, it's him. There's an interview with somebody, a sports writer, at the beginning of the very last show, and he says, great athletes and everybody has the ability, that does things at a super high level, has the ability to live in the moment. And he talked about how people go to ashrams for years and meditate and do all these things in order to try to be able to live in the moment. Michael Jordan was not the biggest. He was not the fastest. He was not the strongest. He couldn't jump the highest. But he's clearly the best. And that's not a difference in talent. That's a difference in effort. And that's a difference in mental approach. And one of the things that he did great was he had the ability to live in the moment. So they're showing the last season, the last games against the Utah Jazz. And in Game 5, everybody thought that the Bulls were going to win and going to win at home. It got to the end of the game, and Michael Jordan took a last-second shot and missed. They didn't win in Game 5. But when he showed up in Game 6, he wasn't living in that moment. He was living in the moment of what was going to happen that night. And it came down to a tie ball game, 5 seconds left. Michael Jordan's got the ball, and Dennis Rodman's being interviewed, and he says, I didn't even go down the floor. I walked on the floor because I'm like, he's going to shoot it and he's going to make it, and this game's over. Which is exactly what he did. He shot it and he made it, and the Bulls, won their 6th championship. And when he shot it, if you remember, it's the one where he holds the pose. He holds his arm up in the air because he knows this moment is significant. It's the last time I'm going to do this as a Chicago Bull, most likely, and it's my last championship. And then it ends with an interview of Michael Jordan that was done the day that he was drafted. And he looks like he's 12. And when they drafted him, remember, when they drafted him, the Chicago Bulls were being outdrawn by fans, in the number of fans, by a semi-pro soccer team called the Chicago Sting. They were outdrawing the Bulls. That's where the Bulls were in terms of the franchise. Michael Jordan got drafted, and they asked him, what do you think about coming to Chicago? And he said, my hope here, and he said hope, because he was being nice in front of the camera. My hope here is that we're able to create a dynasty like the Philadelphia 76ers, the Boston Celtics, and the LA Lakers. And that I'm the basis for that, and they're able to build that dynasty around me. He said that to the camera the day that he was drafted. He knew his outcome. He knew what he wanted. He took massive action. Remember, didn't work out great at first. He lost to Detroit again, changed his approach, kept going until he achieved his result. And then even after he retired, he comes back and he does it 3 more times. He never competed against other people. He competed against himself. He always was able to live in that moment. Jack Nicklaus did the same thing. The last Masters that Jack Nicklaus won, he was in his 40s. People weren't supposed to still be golfing at that point. He couldn't hit the ball the furthest. He couldn't do all the stuff that the young golfers could do, but he could putt. And that was how he won. Remember Tiger Woods? Shows up, destroys Augusta, absolutely destroys the course, beats every record, beats the best score by like 10 strokes, 15. I mean, it was unbelievable. He just absolutely destroyed the course and decides, my swing is terrible. I need to completely redo my swing because this is attainable, but it's not sustainable. He never compared himself to anybody else. He only compared himself to himself and what his goal was, which was to be the greatest golfer in the history of the sport. And he knew if he kept swinging like this, his back wasn't going to hold up. And he ended up breaking record after record after record after record after record. The only record that he hasn't broken is the most majors won by a single golfer. Jack Nicklaus has 18, Tiger Woods has 15, and the next closest has like 5. I think Phil has like 5. That's the next closest. With all of the greatest golfers ever, that's the closest one. And let's remember, Tiger's not done. He's still going. I mean, he's still his last major was not that long ago, and he's still playing. Here's my favorite Tiger Woods statistic. During 1 year, he held all 4 majors. He's the only person to ever do this. He had the Masters, the U.S. Open, the British Open, and the PGA Championship. He held all 4 of those titles at the same time. And, when Tiger first came out, he hit the ball pretty far. But he's not the most consistent driver. He's not... He does pretty well with his irons, but his short game sometimes goes all over the place. But here's the statistic that makes the difference. Most golfers that are, good golfers, somebody that shoots an 80 or an 85, on a given round, they will try to make, one putt between 3 and 10 feet. So the putts that you're talking about are called 10-footers, and they're kind of golfers' nemesis because, you take 2 or 3 strokes to get the ball all the way to the hole, and then now you're 10 feet from the hole, and for some people it'll take them another 3 strokes to get the ball into the hole. The old adage is you hit for show, you putt for dough. So 10-footers are the putts that everybody has to worry about. So the average golfer, if you're a good golfer, they're out there, when they're from 3 to 10 feet, they're trying to make as many of those as they can, but typically they make one around. They make one around. The average professional golfer on the PGA Tour misses one of those around. So they make all of them but one on a given round. When they win a tournament, they tend to miss one of those putts for the entire tournament. So they get on a streak where they miss one putt out of 4 days worth of 10-foot putts. It shows you how you can get to 10 under par. During the entire year that Tiger Woods held all 4 of those titles, guess how many 10-foot putts he missed? And I'll give you a hint. He had 111 of them. And guess how many he missed in the year? 1. It wasn't his driving. It wasn't his irons. It was his putting, and that's mental. Putting is all mental. That's because he was the strongest person mentally on that course. He was the most determined. He knew his outcome, and in fact, he intimidated the other players. And Michael Jordan was the same way. He was the strongest mentally on that court. When he came out on that court, his intention to win was stronger than everybody else. And as a result, that's all he focused on. He never focused on the bad shots. He never focused on the misses. And he reframed everything. Today was another day, and today I'm going to get the outcome that I want. So as you approach today, remember, you need to learn the lessons of the past, but then have a short memory. Let it go. You need to focus on your outcome, just like those guys do. They focus with an intense desire to achieve that particular outcome. Nothing else is an option. And they take massive action until they get what they want, and they keep trying. And they change their approach. If they don't get the result that they want, then they try again. If they don't get the result that they want, then they try again. And they do not beat themselves up. They use it as fuel to fuel themselves moving forward. Great talking to you guys today. I love talking to you every day. Tomorrow's hump day. Mike. Have a great day.